A single father asks his alien waitress why she's shaking. He never expected her answer. The coffee cup rattled against the saucer. Trevor Cole watched the alien waitress's hands tremble as she set down his order. Lilac fingers, slender and gentle, couldn't seem to hold steady. The cup clattered again. She pulled her hands back quickly, tucking them against her apron like she was trying to hide them. "Sorry," she whispered. Her voice was soft, almost musical. Her skin had that faint purple glow under the diner's fluorescent lights, and her eyes, those large, dark eyes that marked her as Kaylari, wouldn't meet his. Trevor glanced at his daughter. Emma sat across from him in the booth, swinging her legs and coloring on the paper, placemat with crayons the waitress had brought. She was humming something, 4 years old and completely absorbed in drawing what looked like a 3-headed dog. He looked back at the waitress. She was already turning away. "Hey," Trevor said quietly. She stopped. Her shoulders tensed. "Are you okay?" The diner was nearly empty. It was late afternoon on Denmark Colony, and most people were still at work. The place smelled like synthetic eggs and recycled air. Outside the window, the red sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty streets. The waitress turned back slowly. Her name tag read Alaya in standard script. "I'm fine," she said. But her hands were still shaking. Trevor had been a military mechanic for 8 years before Emma was born. He'd learned to read people, the same way he read machines, looking for the things that didn't fit, the tremors that meant something was about to break. "You don't look fine," he said gently. Elia's eyes finally met his. They were wet. She stopped, swallowed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't." "It's okay." Trevor kept his voice low, calm. "You don't have to apologize." Emma looked up from her drawing. She tilted her head, studying the waitress with that intense curiosity only children have. "Your hands are shaky," Emma said. Trevor winced. It's okay," Elia said quickly. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm just having a bad day." "Why?" Emma asked. "Emma, that's not—" "It's okay," Elia said again. She looked at Trevor, then at Emma, then back at Trevor. Something shifted in her expression, like she was too tired to keep pretending. "I'm losing my job, and my mother is dying." The words hung in the air. Trevor felt something twist in his chest. He knew that look, that exhaustion, that weight. "I'm sorry," he said. Elia nodded. She wiped at her eyes quickly like she was embarrassed. "It's fine. I'll figure it out." "I always do." But her hands were still shaking. Trevor looked down at his coffee. He thought about his own hands 2 years ago, when the officers came to tell him about Sarah, how he couldn't hold anything steady for weeks, how Emma had held his hand at the funeral, her tiny fingers wrapped around his, and whispered, "It's okay, Daddy." He looked back up at Elia. "Can you work on machines?" he asked. She blinked. "What?" "Machines, engines, wiring. Can you work on them?" I don't know. I've never tried." "Can you learn?" Elia stared at him. I think so." Trevor nodded. "I run a repair shop on the edge of town. Cole's Mechanics. I need help. Someone to answer calls, organize parts, clean up. Maybe learn some basic repairs if you're interested." He paused. "It doesn't pay much. But it's work." Elia's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Yeah. You don't even know me." "I know you need a job." Trevor shrugged. "And I need help. Seems like it works out." Emma looked between them, then smiled. "You can come work with my daddy. He fixes everything." Elia's hands finally stopped shaking. She pressed them together, holding them against her chest like she was trying to keep something from escaping. "Why would you do that?" she whispered. Trevor thought about Sarah, about how she used to say that kindness was a choice you made every day, even when it was hard, especially when it was hard. "Because someone helped me once," he said quietly, "when I needed it." Elia's eyes filled with tears, real tears this time. They spilled over, running down her lilac cheeks. "Thank you," she breathed. Trevor nodded. He pulled out a napkin and wrote down the address of his shop. "Come by tomorrow morning. 7 o'clock. We'll figure it out." Elia took the napkin like it was something precious. Her hands were still trembling, but different now. Lighter. "Thank you," she said again. The next morning, Elia showed up at 6:30. Trevor was already in the shop, working on a damaged hover generator for one of the colony's transport trucks. He heard the soft knock on the door and looked up to see her standing outside, backlit by the early dawn. She was wearing simple clothes, a gray tunic and dark pants, and she was carrying a small bag. He wiped his hands on a rag and opened the door. "You're early," he said. "I didn't want to be late." Trevor smiled. "Come in." The shop was cluttered but organized in that way mechanics understand. Tools hung on pegboards, parts were stacked in labeled bins, and the smell of oil and metal filled the air. Emma was still asleep upstairs in the small apartment above the shop, where they lived. Elia stepped inside slowly, looking around like she was entering a sacred space. "It's not much," Trevor said, "but it's honest work." "It's perfect," Elia said softly. They spent the morning going over the basics. Trevor showed her how to answer the terminal, how to log repair requests, where the parts were stored. She listened intently, nodding, asking questions. Her hands were steady now, focused. Around 10, Emma came downstairs, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Elia," she said, brightening immediately. "You came back." Elia smiled, a real smile this time. "I did." "Are you going to work with Daddy?" "I am." "Good." Emma climbed onto a stool by the workbench. "He needs help. He tries to do everything by himself and then he gets grumpy." Trevor raised an eyebrow. "I do not get grumpy?" "You do," Emma said matter-of-factly. She looked at Elia. "He makes this face." She scrunched up her face in a comical frown. Elia laughed. It was a quiet sound, almost surprised, like she hadn't laughed in a long time. Trevor felt that twist in his chest again, but it wasn't pain this time. It was something else. Something warmer. 2 weeks passed. Elia learned quickly. She had a natural precision, a careful attention to detail that made her good, with delicate wiring and small components. Trevor found himself teaching her more than he'd planned. How to diagnose problems, how to read schematics, how to feel when something was about to fail. She stayed late most nights, learning, working, helping. Sometimes Emma would sit with her, chattering about school or her drawings, and Elia would listen with that same gentle attention she gave everything. On the 3rd week, Trevor noticed Elia was still wearing the same clothes she'd arrived in. "Where are you staying?" he asked one evening. Elia hesitated. "There's a shelter on the east side." "It's fine." Trevor frowned. The east side shelters were overcrowded and unsafe, especially for someone like Elia. Non-humans often faced harassment there. "That's not fine," he said. "It's all I can afford right now." Trevor looked up at the ceiling, thinking about the apartment above the shop. It had 2 bedrooms. He and Emma shared one. The other had been Sarah's studio where she used to paint. He'd boxed everything up after she died, but the room was still there, empty, waiting. "There's a room upstairs," he said. "You can stay there." Elia stared at him. "Trevor, I can't." "Yes, you can. It's empty." "You'd be doing me a favor, actually. Emma gets scared at night sometimes, and I can't always hear her from my room. If you're here, you could check on her." It was a half-truth. Emma did get scared sometimes, but mostly, Trevor just didn't like the idea of Elia sleeping in a dangerous shelter when he had space. Elia's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes." She nodded slowly. "Yes." That night, Trevor helped Elia move her few belongings into the spare room. It didn't take long. She had one bag, a few changes of clothes, and a small wooden box that she held carefully. "What's that?" Emma asked, pointing at the box. Elia looked down at it. "Something from home." "Can I see?" Elia hesitated, then knelt down and opened the box. Inside was a small crystalline object, no bigger than a marble, glowing faintly with an inner light. It pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Emma's eyes went wide. "It's pretty." "It is," Elia said softly. "It belonged to my mother. She gave it to me before—" She stopped, swallowed. "Before she got sick." Trevor knelt down beside them. "What is it?" "I'm not sure," Elia admitted. "My mother called it a memory stone. She said it holds pieces of our history, our people." She touched it gently with one finger and the light pulsed brighter. "She told me to keep it safe, that it was important." Emma reached out slowly. "Can I touch it?" Elia started to say no, then stopped. Something flickered across her face, surprise maybe or fear. She looked at Trevor. "Is it safe?" he asked. I think so. Emma's small hand touched the stone. The light exploded. Not outward, inward. It pulsed through Emma's hand up her arm into her chest. Her eyes widened, glowing faintly with the same light. She gasped. Em! Trevor grabbed her, pulling her back. The light faded immediately. Emma blinked, looking dazed. Are you okay? Trevor asked, his heart pounding. Emma nodded slowly. I saw stars. Lots of stars. And singing. Trevor looked at Elia. She was staring at Emma, her face pale. What just happened? Trevor demanded. Elia closed the box quickly, her hand shaking again. I don't know. That's never happened before. I swear. What is that thing? I told you it's a memory stone. It's supposed to be harmless. It's just a keepsake. Trevor looked down at Emma. She seemed fine now, just confused. He pulled her into his arms. I think we should put that away, he said quietly. Elia nodded. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. It's okay. Trevor took a breath, forcing himself to calm down. Let's be more careful. Elia held the box against her chest. I will, I promise. But Trevor saw the way she looked at Emma, like she'd just seen something impossible. The next few weeks were quieter. Elia settled into life above the shop. She cooked sometimes, strange, wonderful dishes from her homeworld that Emma loved. She helped with Emma's homework. She laughed more. The shadows under her eyes faded. Trevor caught himself watching her sometimes. The way she moved, careful and precise. The way she smiled when Emma told a joke. The way her hands no longer shook when she worked. He told himself it was just gratitude. She was a good employee, a good friend. But late at night, when he lay in bed and heard her moving around in the next room, he felt something he hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. One evening after Emma had gone to bed, Trevor and Elia sat in the small kitchen above the shop. They were drinking tea, something Elia had made from herbs she'd bought at the market. It tasted like honey and starlight. Thank you, Elia said quietly. For what? For this. For everything. She looked around the small apartment. I haven't felt safe in a long time. Not since I left my homeworld. Why did you leave? Elia's expression darkened. It's complicated. Trevor waited. He'd learned that sometimes silence was the best question. Elia sighed. My people, we're dying. We've been dying for a long time. Our world was destroyed in a war centuries ago. We've been scattered across the galaxy ever since, trying to find a new home. She stared down at her tea. My mother was one of the last elders. She knew things. Old things. Dangerous things. Like the memory stone? Elia nodded. The stone is more than a keepsake. It's a key, a map, a record of everything we were before the war. My mother believed it could help us find a new home, or rebuild what we lost. She paused. But there are others who want it. Others who believe our people should be forgotten. That we're too dangerous to survive. Who? Hunters, mercenaries. Some of them are my own people. Her voice was barely a whisper. They killed my father. They're the reason my mother is dying. And if they find me, they'll kill me too. Trevor felt ice settle in his stomach. Are they looking for you? I don't know. I've been hiding for 2 years. Moving from colony to colony. Changing my name. Trying to disappear. She looked at him. That's why I was working at the diner. Cash jobs, no records. I couldn't afford to stay in one place. But you're staying here. I know. She smiled sadly. I know it's dangerous. But I'm tired, Trevor. I'm so tired of running. And for the first time in 2 years, I feel like I have a home. Her eyes filled with tears. Even if it's just for a little while. Trevor reached across the table and took her hand. Her skin was warm, soft. You're safe here, he said quietly. I promise. Elia looked at their joined hands. You don't understand what you're promising. Maybe not, but I mean it anyway. She looked up at him. Something passed between them. Something unspoken but real. Thank you, she whispered. 3 days later they came. Trevor was in the shop, working on a malfunctioning coolant system, when the door opened. He looked up, expecting a customer. Instead, he saw 3 figures in dark armor. They weren't human. They weren't Kalari either. They were something else. Tall, angular, with skin like polished metal and eyes that glowed red. Verithan, mercenaries. We're closed, Trevor said carefully. The lead figure stepped forward. We're looking for someone. Then try the colony registry. We're looking for a Kelari, female, purple skin. She would have arrived here within the last few months. Trevor's heart began to pound. Don't know what you're talking about. The mercenary tilted his head. You're lying. I'm telling you I can't help you. The mercenary took another step forward. We know she's here. We've been tracking her signal. The memory stone she carries emits a unique frequency. Very faint. But we have the equipment to detect it. Trevor's mind raced. Upstairs. Elia was upstairs with Emma. I don't know what you're talking about, he said again. The mercenary pulled out a weapon. Not a gun. Something worse. It glowed with the same sickly red as his eyes. We don't want trouble, the mercenary said. We just want the stone, and the girl who carries it. Not happening. Then we'll take it by force. Trevor reached for the plasma wrench on his workbench. It wasn't much of a weapon, but it was heavy and solid. The mercenaries raised their weapons. And then Emma screamed. The sound came from upstairs, high and terrified. Trevor's blood went cold. Em! He bolted for the stairs. The mercenaries moved to stop him, but something happened. The lights went out. Not just the shop lights. All the lights. Every electronic system in the building shut down simultaneously, plunging everything into darkness. Trevor heard footsteps above him, running. He charged up the stairs, blind, his heart hammering. When he burst into the apartment, he saw Elia standing in front of Emma, her arms spread wide. The memory stone was glowing in her hand, blazing with white light. The entire room was bathed in it. The mercenaries were on the floor, writhing, their weapons sparking and dead. Get back! Elia shouted. Trevor grabbed Emma, pulling her behind him. What's happening? The stone. It's protecting us. Elia's voice was strained. But I can't hold it much longer. What do you mean? It's draining me. If I don't stop, it'll kill me. Trevor looked at the mercenaries. They were already starting to recover, pushing themselves up, reaching for backup weapons. We need to go, he said. Where? I don't know. Anywhere but here. Elia closed her fist around the stone. The light dimmed. She swayed, and Trevor caught her. Can you run? She nodded. I can run. They ran. Trevor had a ship, a small, battered freighter he'd been repairing in the back lot for months. It wasn't pretty and it wasn't fast, but it could fly. He carried Emma while Elia stumbled beside him, still weak from using the stone. Behind them he could hear the mercenaries recovering, shouting, giving chase. Daddy, I'm scared, Emma whispered. I know, baby. It's okay. We're getting out of here. They reached the ship. Trevor slammed his hand on the access panel and the ramp lowered. They scrambled inside. He set Emma down in the co-pilot's seat and strapped her in, then turned to the controls. Do you know how to fly this thing? Elia asked. Sort of. Sort of? I'm a mechanic, not a pilot. Oh, gods. Trevor fired up the engines. They coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Outside, the mercenaries were closing in, raising their weapons. Hold on, Trevor shouted. He slammed the throttle forward. The ship lurched into the air, tilting dangerously to the left. Trevor fought the controls, swearing, correcting. Laser fire streaked past the windshield. One shot clipped the hull and alarms started blaring. We're hit, Elia said. I know. Trevor pushed the ship higher, faster. The ground fell away. The mercenaries became tiny figures, still firing uselessly. And then they were above the clouds, above the atmosphere, into the black. Emma was crying. Trevor reached over and squeezed her hand. It's okay, Em, we're okay. But he wasn't sure that was true. Elia collapsed into the navigator's seat, breathing hard. The memory stone fell from her hand, rolling across the floor. Trevor scooped it up quickly and handed it back to her. What the hell was that, he asked. I told you. The stone protects us, but it has a cost. What kind of cost? She looked up at him. Her eyes were dull, exhausted. It feeds on life energy. Mine. If I use it too much, it will drain me completely. Trevor stared at her. You could have died. I would have died anyway if they'd taken it. She clutched the stone to her chest. This is all I have left of my people. I won't let them have it. Emma leaned over. Where are we going, Daddy? Trevor looked out at the stars. Infinite, cold, empty. I don't know, baby. They drifted for 3 days. The ship's systems were barely functional. Life support worked, but navigation was damaged. And they had no idea where they were. Trevor tried to repair what he could, but without proper tools or parts, there wasn't much he could do. Elia spent most of the time resting, recovering from using the stone. Emma stayed close to Trevor, quieter than usual, sensing the fear neither adult wanted to voice. On the third night, Trevor sat in the pilot's seat staring out at the stars. Elia came up behind him, moving silently. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "No." She sat down in the co-pilot's seat. For a long time they didn't speak. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I've put you and Emma in danger. I should have left. I should have." "Don't," Trevor said quietly. "Don't apologize for surviving. But Emma is fine. We're all fine. We'll figure this out." Elia looked at him. "Why are you doing this? Why are you risking everything for me?" Trevor thought about Sarah, about how she used to talk about duty, honor, responsibility, how she died protecting something she believed in, even though she'd never told him what it was. "Because it's the right thing to do," he said. "That's not a good enough reason. It's the only reason I have." Elia reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, steady. "Thank you," she whispered. Trevor looked down at their joined hands. He thought about how much his life had changed in the last month. How a single moment of kindness had led to this. To running, to danger, to her. "You're welcome," he said. The transmission came on the fourth day. It was a distress signal, automated, repeating. Trevor traced it to a nearby space station, an old research outpost, abandoned decades ago. "Should we investigate?" Elia asked. Trevor looked at their dwindling fuel reserves. "We don't have much choice. We need supplies." They approached the station carefully. It was massive, a sprawling structure of metal and glass, floating in the darkness like a ghost. No lights, no power, no signs of life. Trevor docked the ship at one of the external airlocks and suited up. "Stay here," he told Elia and Emma. "If anything goes wrong, get out. Don't wait for me. Trevor, promise me." Elia hesitated, then nodded. "I promise." Trevor entered the station alone. The inside was dark. His helmet light cut through the blackness, revealing corridors choked with debris and frozen condensation. Everything was silent except for the hiss of his breath. He followed the distress signal to the station's central hub. The doors were sealed, but he managed to override the controls and force them open. What he found inside took his breath away. The room was filled with technology, ancient technology. Glowing panels covered the walls, displaying star charts and symbols he didn't recognize. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on that pedestal was another memory stone, larger than Elia's, pulsing with a deep blue light. Trevor stepped closer, mesmerized, and then he saw the body. It was slumped against the pedestal, frozen, preserved by the cold and vacuum. A human, female, wearing a military uniform. Trevor's blood turned to ice. He knew that uniform. He'd worn one just like it. He knew that face. Sarah, his wife. The woman who had died 2 years ago, supposedly in a transport accident. But she was here, on this abandoned station, surrounded by alien technology. Trevor's legs gave out. He collapsed to his knees, staring at her frozen face, his mind refusing to process what he was seeing. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." His radio crackled. Elia's voice. "Trevor, are you okay?" He couldn't answer. "Trevor?" "She's here," he choked out. "Sarah, my wife. She's here." Silence. "Then I'm coming in." "No." But she was already moving. Trevor heard the airlock cycle, footsteps in the corridor. And then Elia was there, suited up, standing beside him, looking down at Sarah's body. "Oh gods," Elia breathed. Trevor looked up at her. "Did you know? Did you know she was here?" "No, I swear I didn't know." "Then what is this? What is any of this?" Elia moved to the pedestal, studying the stone, the panels, the symbols. Her hands moved over the controls and the displays flickered to life. "This is a research station," she said quietly. "Built by my people centuries ago, before the war. It was one of dozens scattered across the galaxy. Designed to study the memory stones and their connection to." She trailed off, staring at the displays. "Oh no." "What?" "The stones aren't just records. They're keys. Each one unlocks a piece of an ancient network, a weapon system designed to protect the Kalari homeworld." Her voice was shaking now. "The hunters aren't just trying to erase our history. They're trying to prevent us from accessing the weapon. Because if we activate it..." She looked at Trevor. It could destroy entire star systems. Trevor felt the ground shift beneath him. And Sarah knew about this? Elia nodded slowly. She must have been investigating it. Trying to protect it, or destroy it. Why didn't she tell me? Because telling you would have put you in danger. Just like I put you in danger. Trevor looked down at Sarah's frozen body. He thought about all the nights she'd come home late. Exhausted, refusing to talk about work. All the time she'd held him and said, "I love you, Trevor. No matter what happens, remember that." She'd been protecting him. Protecting Emma. Just like Elia was trying to do now. "We need to leave," Elia said quietly. "If the mercenaries trace us here..."
They already have.
The voice came from behind them. Trevor spun around. The lead mercenary stood in the doorway, weapon raised. Behind him, the others. "Step away from the stone," the mercenary said. Trevor moved in front of Elia. "No. This doesn't concern you, human. Walk away. Take your child, live." I said no. The mercenary's eyes glowed brighter. "Then you'll die." He raised his weapon, and Emma appeared in the doorway behind him. "No," Trevor shouted. But Emma wasn't afraid. She walked forward calmly, and in her small hand she held Elia's memory stone. It was glowing, bright, brighter than Trevor had ever seen. "Emma, don't..." Emma touched the stone to the pedestal. The entire station exploded with light. Trevor couldn't see, couldn't hear, couldn't breathe, and then slowly the light faded. He was still in the hub, still alive. Elia was beside him, staring in shock. The mercenaries were gone, not dead, but vanished as if the light had erased them. And Emma stood at the pedestal, her eyes glowing with that same inner light. "Emma," Trevor whispered. She looked at him, smiled. "I understand now, Daddy." "Understand what?" "Why Mommy did what she did. Why Elia is scared. Why the stone sings." Emma touched the pedestal gently. "It's not a weapon." "It never was." Elia stepped forward. "What do you mean?" "The stones remember everything. All the hurt, all the fear, all the war, but they also remember the love. The hope, the dreams." Emma's voice was strange now, older, echoing with something vast. "The Kailari built them to preserve their souls, so that even if they died, they would be remembered, so they could be reborn." "Reborn?" Elia breathed. Emma nodded. "There's a world, far away, hidden, where the stones were made. If you bring all the stones there, if you unite them, they can bring the Kailari back. Not as they were, but as they could be." Trevor knelt down in front of his daughter. "Emma, how do you know this?" She looked at him with those glowing eyes. "Because Mommy left it for me. She put her memory in the big stone before she died. She wanted me to know. She wanted me to help." Trevor felt tears on his face. "Sarah, she loved you, Daddy. She loved us both. That's why she stayed here. To keep the stones safe until someone could finish what she started." Elia was crying too. "But the hunters..." "They're afraid," Emma said simply. "They think the stones will bring war. But they won't. They'll bring peace. If we can show them..." Trevor looked at Elia. "Can we do that?" She looked at the memory stone in Emma's hand. At the larger stone on the pedestal. At the star charts glowing on the walls. "I don't know," she said. "But we have to try." Trevor pulled Emma into his arms, holding her tight. The light faded from her eyes. And she was just Emma again, 4 years old. Small, fragile, perfect. "Okay," he said. "We'll try." The journey took 6 months. They found other stones, other stations. Each one revealed more of the story. A civilization torn apart by war, scattered across the galaxy, desperate to survive. Some of the Kailari they met helped them. Others tried to stop them, convinced the stones were too dangerous to reunite. But Emma always knew where to go, what to say, how to convince them. Trevor watched his daughter grow in those months. Not just older, but wiser. She carried something inside her now. Sarah's memory. The stone's knowledge. A connection to something vast and ancient. It should have scared him, but it didn't, because she was still Emma, still his little girl. And Elia was still Elia, still careful, still kind, still there beside him every step of the way. They didn't talk about the feelings growing between them. There wasn't time, but sometimes late at night, when Emma was asleep and the ship was quiet, they would sit together in the cockpit and just exist in the same space, their hands touching, their breathing synchronized. It was enough. On the 6th month they found it, the hidden world, A planet wrapped in nebula clouds invisible to sensors, protected by ancient Kalari technology. They descended through the atmosphere and landed on a plateau, overlooking an ocean of liquid crystal. In the center of the plateau was a temple. Trevor, Elia, and Emma approached it together. The temple doors opened as they drew near, sensing the stones they carried. Inside, the walls were covered in the same symbols they'd seen in the stations. And in the center of the temple was a pool of light. Liquid light, like water made of stars. "This is it," Elia whispered. "The cradle of souls." Emma walked forward. She held out the memory stones, all of them collected over 6 months. 12 stones glowing in her small hands. "Are you sure?" Trevor asked. Emma nodded. "Mommy says it's time." Trevor swallowed. "Okay, do it." Emma stepped to the edge of the pool and released the stones. They fell into the light, and the world changed. The pool erupted upward, a pillar of light that shot into the sky. The temple shook. The ground trembled, and from the light came figures, shapes made of memory and hope and love, coalescing into solid form. Kailari, hundreds of them, thousands. All the souls preserved in the stones, given new life. Elia fell to her knees, sobbing. "My people." The figures moved through the temple, touching the walls, touching each other, crying and laughing and singing in that musical language. Trevor had heard Elia speak. They were whole again, alive again, and among them Trevor saw a familiar face. Sarah. She stood at the edge of the pool, looking at him with those same brown eyes he'd fallen in love with a decade ago. She smiled. "Trevor," she said softly. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. She walked toward him, stopped. "I'm so sorry. For leaving you. For not telling you. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I couldn't. Because knowing would have put you in danger, and I couldn't risk that." She looked at Emma. "I couldn't risk her." Emma ran forward and threw her arms around Sarah. "Mommy!" Sarah knelt down, holding Emma tight, tears streaming down her face. "My sweet girl. You were so brave. So strong." Trevor felt his heart breaking and healing at the same time. Sarah looked up at him. "I can't stay, Trevor. This body is made of memory. It will fade when the light fades. But I needed to see you, both of you, one more time." Trevor's throat closed. "Sarah, I know." She stood slowly, still holding Emma's hand. "I know it's not fair. I know it hurts. But I need you to understand something." She looked into his eyes. "I never left you. Not really. Every moment I spent here, every choice I made because I loved you. Because I loved Emma. I died protecting this secret so that someday, someone could finish what I started. So that maybe, just maybe, a whole species could live again." "You should have told me," Trevor whispered. "I would have helped you. I know you would have. That's why I couldn't tell you." Sarah reached up and touched his face. Her hand was warm, real. "You have the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known, Trevor Cole. You would have thrown yourself into the fire for me. And I couldn't let you do that. I needed you alive. I needed you to take care of Emma, to give her the childhood I couldn't." Trevor grabbed her hand, pressing it against his cheek. "I miss you. Every day I miss you. I miss you too." Sarah's voice broke. "But you're not alone anymore. You haven't been alone for a long time." She looked past Trevor to where Elia stood, watching them with tears streaming down her face. "Take care of them," Sarah said softly to Elia. "They saved you. Now save them." Elia nodded, unable to speak. Sarah turned back to Emma. She knelt down again, holding both of Emma's small hands in hers. "Baby, do you understand what's happening?" Emma nodded. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. "Not really. You're going away again." "Yes. Forever this time?" Sarah's lips trembled. "My body, yes. But I'll always be here." She touched Emma's chest right over her heart. "In here, in every memory you have of me. In every time Daddy tells you a story about us. In every moment you feel loved." She smiled through her tears. "That's what the stones taught me. Love doesn't die, Emma. It just changes shape." Emma threw her arms around Sarah's neck. "I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby, so much. More than all the stars in the sky." They held each other. Trevor watched, his heart shattering into 1,000 pieces. He wanted to rage, to scream, to demand more time. But he didn't. Because Emma wasn't afraid. She was sad, yes. But she wasn't broken. She understood something he was only beginning to grasp. This wasn't an ending. It was a transformation. Sarah pulled back and kissed Emma's forehead. "You're going to do amazing things. Emma Cole. You're going to see wonders I can only dream of. Promise me you'll be brave. Promise me you'll be kind. Promise me you'll remember that love is the strongest thing in the universe." "I promise," Emma whispered. Sarah stood. She looked at Trevor one more time. "Thank you. For giving me the best years of my life. For being the man I needed you to be. For raising our daughter with so much love." Trevor couldn't speak. He just nodded. Sarah smiled. "Be happy, Trevor. That's all I want. For both of you to be happy." She stepped back toward the pool of light. The other Kailari were already beginning to fade, their forms becoming translucent, dissolving back into pure energy. The stones had given them form, but only for a moment. Long enough to see, to understand, to say goodbye. Sarah looked back one more time. "I love you both always." And then she was gone. The light dimmed. The pool became still. The temple fell silent. Trevor stood there, Emma's hand in his, and let the tears come. Great heaving sobs that shook his whole body. Emma leaned against him, crying too, but quietly, gently. Elia came to them. She wrapped her arms around both of them, holding them together, and they stood like that for a long time. When Trevor finally found his voice, it was rough, broken. "Is she really gone?" Elia looked at the pool. Her body, yes. But she was right. The stones preserve everything. Love, memory, hope. She's part of this place now. Part of the light. She'll exist here as long as the cradle exists. So we can't bring her back? No. Elia's voice was gentle. But we can honor what she did. We can finish her work. Trevor looked down at Emma. "What happens now?" Emma wiped her eyes. The Kailari know the truth now. They saw it when the stones connected. They know the weapon was never meant to destroy. It was meant to protect, to rebuild. She looked at Elia. They're not afraid anymore. Elia stared at the pool, watching the last wisps of light fade. "My people, they're scattered across 100 worlds. But now they know. They know there's a place for them. A home if they want it. Will they come?" Trevor asked. "Some will. Some won't. But that's okay." Elia smiled through her tears. "We have a choice now. That's more than we've had in centuries." Trevor pulled them both close. His daughter, He didn't know what to call Elia. She was more than a friend. More than an employee. She was family. "Let's go home," he said quietly. Emma looked up at him. "Where's home, Daddy?" Trevor thought about the shop on Denmark Colony, about the apartment above it, about the small kitchen where they'd drunk tea and talked about hope, about all the moments that had led them here. "Wherever we are together," he said. "That's home." They stayed on the hidden world for 3 days. Other Kailari began to arrive, ships appearing through the nebula. Drawn by a signal, the cradle was now broadcasting. They came cautiously at first, afraid it was a trick. But when they saw the temple, when they touched the pool and felt the memory of their ancestors, they wept. Elia spent hours talking with them, planning, dreaming. Trevor watched her transform before his eyes. She stood taller now, spoke with more confidence. The trembling was gone. She was becoming a leader, someone who could guide her people home. On the 3rd night, she found Trevor sitting outside the temple, watching the twin moons rise over the crystal ocean. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "No." She sat beside him. For a long time, they just watched the moons. "I have to stay," she said finally. Trevor's heart clenched. "I know. My people need me. They need someone who understands both worlds, human and Kailari, someone who can bridge the gap." "I know," Trevor said again. "But I don't want to." Her voice cracked. "I don't want to say goodbye to you, to Emma, to the life we built." Trevor looked at her, really looked at her beautiful lilac skin glowing in the moonlight, at her dark eyes shining with unshed tears, at her hands steady and strong resting in her lap. "You don't have to say goodbye," he said quietly. "Trevor." "I mean it. Emma and I, we can stay, if you want us to." Elia stared at him. "You would do that? Leave everything behind? What am I leaving, a shop? A colony where mercenaries know our faces?" Trevor shook his head. "That's not a life. That's just existing. He gestured at the temple, the ocean, the moons. "This is something worth staying for." "But Emma's already chosen. She told me this morning. She wants to stay, She wants to help rebuild. She says, Trevor smiled sadly. She says this is what her mom would want. Elia's eyes filled with tears. Are you sure? No, Trevor laughed. I'm not sure of anything, but I know I don't want to lose you. I know I don't want to go back to being alone. And I know that whatever we're building here, it's worth fighting for. Elia reached over and took his hand. Her fingers intertwined with his. I love you, she said softly. I didn't think I could. After everything I'd lost, everything I'd been through, I didn't think I could feel this way again. But I do. I love you, Trevor Cole, and I love Emma. You saved my life in that diner, and you've been saving it every day since. Trevor felt something break open inside his chest. Not pain, not grief, something else. Joy. I love you too, he whispered. They kissed under the twin moons. Gentle, tender, full of promise. When they pulled apart, Elia was smiling. So we're doing this? Really doing this? Yeah, we're doing this. Emma's going to be impossible. She'll want to explore everything. Learn every language. Befriend every species that comes here. Trevor laughed. I know. She's her mother's daughter. And yours. And yours now, too. If you'll have us. Elia cupped his face in her hands. I'll have you. For as long as you'll stay. Forever, then. Forever. 6 months later, the hidden world had a name. Kalara Nova. New Kalara. The colony was small but growing. Kalari from across the galaxy were arriving, bringing with them fragments of their culture, their history, their dreams. They built homes, schools, markets, a spaceport for the ships that came and went. Trevor opened a new shop, Cole and Elia's Mechanics. They worked side by side, repairing ships, teaching young Kalari how to maintain their technology, building something together. Emma started school with other Kalari children. She learned their language fluently, made friends, brought home drawings of crystal oceans and twin moons. She still had moments when she was sad when she missed her mom, but they were fewer now, lighter. She was healing. They all were. One evening, Trevor stood outside the shop watching the sun set over the ocean. Emma was inside with Elia, helping organize parts and singing some Kalari songs she'd learned at school. He thought about the diner on Denmark Colony, about Elia's trembling hands, about the moment he'd asked her if she was okay. That one question, that one moment of kindness, it had changed everything. It had brought him here, to this world, to this life, to this family. He thought about Sarah and hoped somehow she could see them. See what they'd built, see that he'd kept his promise to be happy. Elia came outside, wiping her hands on a rag. Emma wants to know if we can have dinner on the beach tonight. Sounds perfect. She slipped her hand into his. You okay? Yeah, Trevor smiled. I'm more than okay. They walked back inside together. Emma ran up and grabbed both their hands, pulling them toward the door, chattering about the fish she wanted to catch and the fire they could build and the stories Elia could tell. Trevor looked at his daughter, at his love, at the life they'd created together, and he thought about how easily it could have been different if he hadn't asked, if he'd looked away, if he'd been too wrapped up in his own grief to notice someone else's pain. But he had asked, and everything that followed, the danger, the running, the revelation, the sacrifice, the love, the healing, the rebuilding, all of it had stemmed from that single moment. Years later, when Emma was grown and leading expeditions to find more Kalari survivors, when Kalara Nova had become a thriving hub of culture and commerce, when Trevor and Elia were old and gray and still working side by side in their shop, people would ask him how it all began. How had a human mechanic and his daughter ended up helping rebuild an entire civilization? How had they become part of something so much bigger than themselves? Trevor would smile. He would take Elia's hand, still steady, still strong, never trembling anymore, and he would tell them the truth. It began in a diner on a forgotten colony, with a waitress who couldn't stop shaking, with a single father who noticed, who asked, who cared enough to offer help to a stranger. It began with kindness. The galaxy changed because an ancient weapon was not a weapon at all, but a promise of rebirth. Because memory stones held not just the past but the seeds of the future. Because a woman named Sarah Cole sacrificed everything to protect a secret that would save millions. But more than that, it changed because Trevor Cole saw someone in pain, and decided to do something about it. He didn't know she was an alien fugitive, didn't know she carried the key to rebuilding a lost civilization, didn't know his late wife had died protecting the same secret, didn't know his daughter would bridge two species and help bring peace to a scattered people. He just knew someone needed help, and he helped. That was all. That was everything. All of it happened because a single father asked a trembling alien waitress why she was shaking, and he never expected her answer.